Welcome everybody to the best panel of the day, hands down. And I'm going to tell you why. It has nothing to do with me, but it has everything to do with the experts that we have put together for this panel. My name is David Lee. I'm going to be the moderator. I'm the director of strategic alliances at Cloudentity, but enough about me. Nobody cares about me. Let's get to the panelists. We're going to be jumping into identity and digital transformation and what it means. And so now I'm going to let my panelists introduce themselves. This is an all-star. This is a rock star panel. But actually, before I do that, I got to get serious for 1 second. So look, if you're watching this, you're attending this event, here's what I want you to do. I want you to right click on Outlook. I want you to close it. Trust me, that email that you're going to get in 5 minutes doesn't really matter. I want you to close Slack. I want you to close Teams. Put your phone down, relax, and get ready, like I said, for the best panel of this entire session. So with that, let's get some introductions. We'll start with Lucas. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the wonderful folks.
Thanks, David. Hi, everybody. Yeah, so I'm coming from RBC, and I'm the director of IAM onboarding at RBC. And so I pretty much work in RBC to strategically align all of our application teams and teams to identity solutions. So reviewing all of their architecture patterns and alignment, and making sure that they're using best practices and industry best practices for their IAM solutions.
All right, Chris.
Hey, thanks, David. My name is Chris Hills. I'm the Deputy CTO here at BeyondTrust. We are a privileged access management vendor. I came by way of the client side. So I was at Charles Schwab as a technical director, leading everything relative to PAM and identity, both as a product owner and as a service owner for a little over 9 years before coming over here to BeyondTrust. Now I'm at BeyondTrust. I've been BeyondTrust for 2 years, now leading the charge, bridging the gap between the sales folks, the engineering technical side, and the actual customers. So helping bridge a lot of those gaps and a lot of those holes, if you will, from that technical aspect and relating to how the customers either are trying to do PAM, which is obviously identity centric, and just moving them forward as an overall better, posture in their security world.
Awesome. Rohit, you're up next.
Thanks, David. A really good introduction. My name is Rohit Shimla. I'm a director of digital trust in City of Toronto. Coming with 17 years of experience and over 300 identity projects, pretty passionate about digital identity. Looking forward to this chat, bringing some of my experience and learning from all of you guys. Thank you.
Awesome. Janet.
Hi, everyone. My name is Janet Lay. I lead customer engagement technology for Loblaw, with the focus of providing world-class customer experience via digital products in different domains as retail, e-commerce, healthcare, beauty, marketing, loyalty, and also platforms that enable, empower those digital products such as CIM, digital content, CRM, and our goal is to help Canadians live life well.
All right. So like I said, everybody, look at this fantastic panel that we have for you all today. And so we're going to kick this off. And, one of the first questions I want to get out to the panel is, we've heard the words digital transformation used a lot, right? And there's a bunch of different definitions to it. It means different things to different people. But just give everybody in your words what digital transformation means to you and how identity becomes a part of that in your everyday work life. So we're going to start with Janet.
Wow, that's a loaded question. The world has changed by pandemic, right? It changed from having digital to a digital first world. Digital transformation by book is the adoption of digital technology to transforming our business. It means transforming the traditional brick mortar business to the new way of adopt new ways of working in terms of process, technology, and people, right? So with a set of innovative process, technology, and talented people who activates that technology and new process to scale that impact. So that is the definition of digital transformation.
All right. Rohit, what about you?
Well, in my view, I agree with Jared, loaded question. I'll try to keep it simple. In my view, the definition really depends on the type and the maturity of an organization, how they define digital transformation. For some organization, it can be a digitization of the records, paper copies. For another organization, it can be a digitization of tech services, technology, like going from on-prem to cloud, from to IoT, OT devices, like that may be digital transformation. But in my opinion, the most important digital transformation is digitization of services. Services, how we deliver, how consumers, whoever that consumer may be, they use our services in the current world.
Awesome. Chris, let's go over to you.
Yeah, so for us being a vendor in the PAM space, you know, I actually do a presentation relative to digital transformation. And to your point, David, digital transformation means a lot of things to different people in different ways. And so everybody takes their own portion of that transformation of what they're doing, whether they are trying to enhance their overall customer experience, whether they're trying to enhance their overall operational efficiency by trying to mature different back-end processes from that transforming the old legacy. Maybe it's an Excel spreadsheet that you're trying to modernize, maybe get into a database or an application, right? The idea is you're trying to streamline, you're trying to modernize, you're trying to move forward for that overall experience, whether it's an internal experience or whether it's a external customer experience. For us as a vendor, you know, especially going through the pandemic and everything else related to the pandemic, everyone's kind of locked down, but there was this huge push into this digital era of everybody has to be connected. And, you know, I don't think everybody was ready for that. So there was a lot of knee-jerk reactions that were made, a lot of, you know, last-minute judgment decisions that were made. And so for us as a vendor in that space, right, for remote access and dealing with that, being able to, you know, bring to market in a quick fashion some of our products, both in a cloud aspect, not only from an on-prem and a virtual aspect, really made us look at our own processes and how we could digitally transform our company and evolve to the market demand, and how we can readily be available and transform our products into a better or more cloud offering. So that way the consuming of those products was much easier accepted by the customer. So that for digital transformation, that's where we really see the benefits of it, you know, reacting to those customers who are trying to get our products.
Yeah, you bring us some good points, and there's a follow-up question I want to get back to. I'm gonna put a pin in for right now, but Lukas, how about you in the digital transformation front?
Yeah, I mean, I think I probably echo everything that everybody else has said around digital transformation and what it is, and I don't want to be a broken record and all of that. So for us, and what we see it as is really the same thing, is it's transforming everything to a digital space and then accelerating that, and from where it could be going to cloud, it could be again physical branches or going from physical location, even working, so the mention of COVID, and digitizing that, right? Getting a workforce being able to work from home, right? Everything was locked down, we had to shut down everything, so we had to change the way we're doing everything. And so for me to put an addition on whatever everybody else has said is also just kind of state that identity is really a cornerstone of everything that runs on that digitization. Is really, how do you digitize the identity across those for reuse and making sure that you have a centralized repository and things like that across your identity so you can scale up and move that acceleration fast, right? As soon as you have kind of those cornerstones set up and running, you can then keep moving that across your pillars and work across that digital transformation across your organization, across boundaries that you have set up either within or outside your organization. And similar to, like, from a vendor partner perspective, utilizing those vendor partners to come in with their accelerators to help from those cornerstone perspectives. So it's really around, can we get people to digital platforms? How do we get those to digital platforms? And how do we upskill and increase the processes around those? And what does identity play in that space? And how can we help?
Yeah, that's good stuff. And you know what? I want to pick up on something that Chris was talking about, right? You know, being on the vendor side, right? You know, this pandemic, you know, hit everybody differently, right? Other than the, you know, if we get past just the general, like, holy crap, right? We're all locked down, like what's going to happen? You know, at some point we all had to realize that business still had to go on. And so we saw a lot of changes from businesses, right? They had to, you know, businesses went from, you know, literally being a physical, come in the store and grab your things to, hey, we've got to go online and digital and deliver these to a new curbside service or something like that. Like, no joke, like overnight, right? We saw business models change overnight. Like we woke up one day, we went to work, and then the next day it was like, yep, everything is out. Like we got to change everything. So with that, right, we from the vendor side, we probably saw some acceleration of product roadmaps. But I want to hear from you guys, especially Janet, Lucas, from a consumer side, like Lucas, you at RBC, like what were some of the things and challenges you guys looked at and said, okay, we got to change the way we deliver some services to customers. Maybe some things we were thinking about doing, in 2021 or maybe 2022, we had to look up and say, we got to do this next month, right? Like just talk to me about just either some of the challenges or some of the discussions you guys had around, changing how are you going to, deliver some of your services.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a huge acceleration around like what we were going to deliver and making sure that rolling out, right? We've had solutions around particular segments of our workforce from work from home and things like that. But then we had to expand that quickly to, again, like you said, people that were always coming into the branches, right? And also, I think Rohit mentioned on digitization of actual documents, right? So signing anything that's e-sign, things like that, and making sure that that's accelerated and ensure that we can have those kind of brokered conversations and still get that done. Or how is that going to interaction with the consumers and customers continue forward, and making sure that we can broker those appropriately, right? We were positioned and we were and always positioning towards making sure that we can have that availability and more closer connection to the consumers. But now it's just accelerating that even more to make sure, can we do that a lot quicker? Because if not, we can't offer services during that period, right? So it's allowing us to pivot and what can we do with the existing services we have? Can we take what we have and pivot those and use them to new segments, or do we need to again create something new and utilize it and just accelerate the timelines on those?
Yeah, and Janet over at Loblaw, I know you guys have your hands in like a lot of things up there in Canada. So give us a little take on some of the things that you guys saw.
Yeah, so we watched very closely since the pandemic happened about the customer behavior and the customer trends in the market. First half of last year, we noticed a big change in terms of customers' needs, in terms of like the retail and grocery needs, like to service customers' essential their day-to-day life, right? E-commerce traffic went 300%, 400% up. We are executing the roadmap of like 3 years down the road that we never anticipated. Right. So we have to spin up a lot of horsepower in the existing e-commerce side, as well as spin up new e-commerce to actually deliver that meals to our customers' home, like meal kits, like new ways of doing things to make our customers' life easier, because they don't want to actually go to the stores. They cannot go to restaurants because they are not open. On the second half of last year, we start to see a trend of customer has their virtual healthcare needs, right? The healthcare, because a lot of the hospitals are very focused on COVID treatment. So we wanted to open that virtual business for the customers and for the patients when they have the opportunity to talk to virtual healthcare service providers, to virtual doctors, like virtual health doctor clinics, to satisfy their needs of taking care of their physical health as well as mental health, right? And also providing them the healthcare programs via virtual network. So those are the two biggest trends that we have seen. We have invested in CIM, our customer identity, 3 years ago. With that in place, the program has evolved. But with that in place, it's very easy to spin up the new e-commerce technology, to spin up new healthcare services. That's the benefit. That's the largest benefit that we have seen since the pandemic, because the technology is ready. We are able to very fast to deliver what customer needs into the market.
Right. And one thing, for those watching, listening, right? That the first nugget that I want to say that we've got out of this, right? So two patterns from both talking to Lucas and Janet, what we saw is like, the things they had around identity were already in place, right? So they had the foundation, had the structure there. Now, of course, nobody knew 2020 was coming, right? We were all looking at it and saying, to Janice, what, like 3-4 years down the road, right? But when all of a sudden you go to a 300 to 400% increase in retail traffic, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we can't do any of this. Like, we have to go remote. We have to deliver this, right? Making sure that your foundation is there looks like was critical for both of you guys, your organizations, to be able to, adapt and kind of change this and push it forward. Rohit, let's come to you. Same kind of question, right? As we kind of came into 2020, what are some of the things that you saw there for the city of Toronto that you guys had to, kind of adjust to?
So very much on the lines what already been said. The only point I want to add to that is city being a city which is catering to a lot of different people from different demographics and different wealth levels. The main challenge we felt was equity. The solutions that we put out there should be accessible by everybody, if not everybody, most of the people.
Right.
City still does quite a lot of business in-person sessions, visits to offices, and those being suddenly down, we have to pivot to quickly how we can digitize those things, and we can cater to services that cannot be delivered online. So that is one challenge that we faced.
Okay. So moving on, I want to talk about, from an identity security standpoint, right? So, one of the things that we've preached in this market is that, identity is at the center of security. I mean, even this conference, when we kicked it off, right? Identity being at the center, which, as identity practitioners, all of us, right? We've believed this for forever, right? For some of us who are, been in this industry enough to grow some gray hair, and we've been screaming this for almost 20 years. But now that we're here and it's more of an accepted phrase, accepted thing, and we're starting to build solutions around it. What are some of the biggest challenges you guys think we face when it comes to identity and security? So Rohit, I'm gonna start with you on this one. Like, just thinking about identity and security, what are some challenges that you see that we have as an industry?
So drawing from my technical experience, industry has grown organically. Right. And they have developed silos. And in that silos, now we are coming into a point where we need to do amalgamation of those silos, and that is a challenge, but that is not the biggest challenge. Privacy, sure, it's a challenge, but it's not the biggest challenge either. In my view, the biggest challenge is governance. Identity security is still very much hanging somewhere in the middle, whether it's an IT function, whether it's a business function, or whether it's a cybersecurity function. So those conversations are still happening, and we don't usually land where we have to do those conversations every time. That being said, I think that is the biggest challenge I have faced in my experience. Making a point that identity is not an IT issue, it's a business issue.
Right.
It's a business function.
All right, Lukas, over to you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree with some of with the points as well about being the highest issues. I think some of the stuff that we're seeing also around identity is amalgamation. And again, we're broad, and so it was mentioned around silos, right? We're a very broad organization in what we do, right? And the things we have, where we have our footprint across, again, jurisdictions, also across different platforms from what we service. And so trying to get some centralized services around that is one of the biggest challenges, right? To meet all those, so things like legacy platforms that we're trying to integrate with and things like that, and having identity solutions around those. But once you can stand up those solutions, you kind of break down those barriers that are allowing to, and it becomes reusable at that point, right? And so you can leverage all of the components that you had and just keep moving and pivoting and growing the solution across that scope. And then some of the other is really, again, as identity practitioners, is really getting that knowledge base into the broader organization. So again, as identity SMEs, we know it. We eat, sleep, breathe it, right? We're in it every day. But also making sure that we have that education and awareness across the organization to take these considerations as they're building applications into them. So security as a practice, but also identity security as a practice. As you build it, as you build something, making sure that you're seeing and looking at the solutions and taking your identity solutions through the appropriate patterns as you're building out, rather than trying to pivot after it's already built, right? So that's what we're trying to do through our organization is making sure that we're reviewing things and talking with teams and getting that awareness out in education as identity as a pillar to say that this is security foundation that you need to be establishing as you build things out. And I think those are probably the biggest cores, is really having reuse and identity solutions, and then having the knowledge base out there for teams to leverage those identity solutions. Because if you have buy-in from them, it's really easy at that point. And then the other thing is that the threat landscape changes every single day. So right, you're always battling the threat landscape. It's going to change every single day. There's going to be something new that comes up. So being able to make sure that you're on top of that from an identity perspective, from a security perspective, and always changing and adapting to stay one step ahead of every threat actor that comes out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's interesting that we, as much as we've matured, you know, in this industry, we're kind of still having some of the same conversations we're having in the beginning. So Janet, I want to throw this over to you and get your thoughts on it. What are some of the challenges that you're seeing from a identity and security perspective?
Yeah, I will go with people, process, and technology, right? From a people perspective, we're lucky that we have the practice. We are able to get some expert in the CIM space from like big companies or like large government. Yes, we do have those knowledge experts, but my concern is for like some startups today or medium companies, is that practice in place, right? People need to understand the concept of IAM, the value of IAM, of like authentication and authorization, and with the whole transformation to the eco cloud digital system, like the identity value is more than just connect authentication logging, and it's connecting all the external vendors via the seamless token exchange, those kind of concepts, right? Also, the future, the strategy of identity, how we tackle the problem of passwordless, FIDO, concept of risk adaptive controls, authorization, like those interesting topics. We need talented expert who has those interest and passion and knowledge to tackle those identity problems. Like that's talent. The second point is the process and governance, right? In large enterprise, it is very challenging to get alignment across internal teams, business architecture, security, and many other, like the line of business who is part of this IAM journey. And also external vendors, right? Our partners and vendors and business partners, like the whole process and governance is also a very challenging, interesting topic. You really need a champion of an enterprise to lead and to connect all those dots together, right? The third one is technology. Lukas also mentioned the evolving fraud and cyber security landscape. Like that is like itself is a challenge, and all the new concept of how we wanted to evolve IAM in the future based on zero trust model, all those security guidance and principles, like that itself, how to select IAM vendor that who's a trust partner to go with, not managing the security landscape, but also have a strategic view on their technology roadmap so you can go with, like that's also a challenge. So people, process, and technology.
The big three always stays there. Chris, we're gonna wrap up on this topic with you, buddy. What do you see some of the biggest challenges? What you're seeing, both from the vendor side and when you're talking to customers.
Yeah, so you know what, everybody brought up some really good points. I'm going to take this in a different direction and possibly give the viewers
Chris,
something
Chris, 1 second. Your mic's a little.
Is it a little low? Do I need to speak up?
Yeah, that's a little bit better. Yeah, it was kind of muffled there.
Sorry about that. Yeah, good luck. So I agree with what everybody said. I'm going to take a little bit different approach, and hopefully the viewers who are watching this can basically walk away with something to think about. When we think about identity security, we actually need to start thinking about the first step. And the idea is, what does that identity have access to? Now, for us, it's the privileged access, right? And making sure that that identity to account mapping is one, accurate, and to Rohit's point, the governance, the compliance aspect of it. If you look at a lot of today's modern cybersecurity breaches and what is happening, the identities that have access to the backend systems, to the servers, to the APIs, whatever it may be, whether we're talking about SolarWinds, whether we're talking about Colonial, whatever it is, ideally we need to make sure that one, the identities are secure, and Janet brought up a good point, right? We're starting to see more things like zero trust creeping in, where you're taking that identity-centric approach. You're not trusting anything in retrospect to that, and you're verifying everybody. Trust nobody, verify everybody. And so ideally what the goal here and what I'm trying to get at is you need to make sure that you have mechanisms in place to know where all of those identities, where they live, what they have access to, and what people are doing with them, because the identity itself is what poses the biggest risk to the organization. Once you have that mapped out, then we can start putting the technology, the controls, the governance, and start mitigating those risks. And so ideally, at the core of everything is the identity. And now you see a lot of different strategies and a lot of different companies focusing on identity is the new perimeter, right? And that truly, at the end of the day, identity is the new perimeters. Being able to secure the identity, know what identities are out there and what they have access to, so we can limit that risk, right? That threat landscape, so we don't become, potentially exposed to a breach or a cybersecurity compromise.
Yeah, absolutely. And to amplify that a little bit, right? I think one of the things that we started with was we always wanted to understand who had access to what, but one of the criticisms I'll give us as an industry is on that what, we always stopped at like the entitlement level, right? And we never really pushed past that to go, okay, hey, they have access to this AD group. And then we said, okay, well, this AD group gives them this application. And we kind of said, we're done. That part behind it, that entitlement, those resources, really understand where all those resources are. Because what happened, we used to be really simple with the applications that we had and how we assigned it. But then, we just started growing applications, microservices, all this stuff out there. And so one group could probably give you access to 5 or 7 different things. So we really need to, understand what is it that this thing is giving access to and how's it tied to identities. So as we come up here on the end, we'll get some questions in from the participants. So one question that we have in is, how do you balance security and usability when it comes to Siam, so customer identity access management? That is a great question in itself, just balancing security and usability, but specifically when it comes to Siam. So let's see, we're gonna start with Janet on this one. She was smiling. I think she was looking like she was ready. She was like, I want this one. So we're gonna start with Janet.
Yeah, well, lots history and stories about this. That's why I was laughing. It is an art to balance between security and customer experience, right? At the end of the day, security is to service for customer. Like security, we all service for our customer, right? To protect customers' privacy, identity, but also we want to make sure that it doesn't create frictions when customer logging or when they during their registration process, right? Like at one point, we went back and forth multiple times because once we implement some security controls, we see a conversion rate drop, and then we continue to evolve our product. This is like a perfect topic that lots of work has to be done. You have to engineer in this piece to get to your balance point, you
Right.
cannot, there's not a priority between both, because all of them achieves one end goal to service your customer.
Okay, so 2 nuggets I'll take from there, right? Got to collect metrics so you have something to measure on, so you can look and basically test an experiment, right? We do this and what happens, and then go back and forth and go with so we got Rohit. What about you?
I agree with what Janet said. It's more of an art than science. And every organization have a balance to strike, as there's no one size fit all here. We have a good representation of panels on this call itself, from retail to banking, a whole spectrum. The question we need to answer is, what is the business of an organization? If it is more of in the cyberspace, which more cyber, what are the implications if there's a breach? So implication for a bank are much more than implication for a retail sector. So the whole spectrum, and then that's where the slide it accordingly. That's what I would say. Lukas.
Awesome. Well, we're coming at the end of time, so we're going to go super, super fast. So everybody like 15 seconds each, right? Look into your crystal ball. Say, what do you think is going to be the most important thing coming in identity, or a good practice that you want to leave with everybody? So Lukas, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, what we just need to do is get education awareness and make sure, I mean, to Janet's point, we need more and more identity practitioners out there to keep kind of spreading that and working on the solutions for the domain.
Awesome. Chris?
Sorry, throw myself off mute. I want to say accountability. Being able to account for the identities within your organization, and you touched on it, David, knowing where they touch, what they have access to, and not just stopping at, hey, we're going to throw them in a security group and not knowing what that leads to. I think we need some better advancements. Obviously, identity governance is coming on strong right now, but that truly is the starting point, I think, that a lot of companies need to figure out.
All right, Rohit?
I would say innovation. We need more and more the new things. Existing things are kind of getting boring.
All right, Janet, take us home.
Okay, I think we need to demonstrate the value of IAM. We need to talk about it. We need to educate the business. We need to educate the customer the value of identity, and then we need more advocates like us to bring this to the everybody's attention.
All right. There you have it, folks. Like I told you, the best panel that you're going to witness all day. Thanks so much for joining us.